we have another member here. He is known as Mookie. His name is Michael Terracciano, and he is very well known throughout the ConnectiCon convention. Yep, ConnectiCon convention. All right, so let's give it up for Mookie.
Garth, come over. It's a hard act to follow Jim Cummings, I know. Oh look, the webcomicer is here. Like, oh. So yeah, hi. I'm Michael Terracciano. My friends call me Mookie. I did a webcomic for 11 years called Dominic Deegan, Oracle for Hire. I just wrapped it up 2 months ago. Yeah, about a month, 2 months ago. And now I'm working with my buddy Garth here on a new webcomic called Star Power. We are very proud of it. We have been in the webcomics business for a long time. Over a decade between the two of us. Well, me for 11 years, and I think you.
Well, I don't know, is it additive? Does your years and my years add together?
Sure, why not? Like a tag.
We've been doing, between the two of us, we've been doing webcomics longer than anybody.
I know.
Longer than the internet.
Like a wrestling tag team. Like at a combined weight of 7 million pounds. And at a combined But I have the honor, I would say, of being one of 2 guests who has been here for ConnectiCon every single year since its first days in the University of Hartford, I think, when it was like, way back when, little paper tags and stuff.
The good old days.
The good old, I don't know if they were good. No,
they were old days.
They were old days. Right. But yeah, we're the we're a couple of the webcomicers. There's a lot of webcomics guests. We are among the 2 of them, and if anybody has any questions about the webcomics scene, since it's very well represented here at ConnectiCon, which is one of the reasons why I think
it's actually one of the reasons I really like ConnectiCon, is because when I started doing conventions, there weren't a lot of conventions that were really open to the webcomic. ConnectiCon was like, no, you guys are awesome, you do great things, come, be part of the show. And they've always been very welcoming and very inclusive of the webcomic.
ConnectiCon has very much grown on a reputation of being so open and so welcoming to webcomics. I mean, from years ago, like Garth was saying, when nobody really knew what a webcomic was, or like some people were like, there was just a lure just to having a webcomic. Like, you have a webcomic? Come to our convention, please, we'll pay for everything. You haven't updated in 6 months, we don't care, just come, you have a webcomic. You know, and even still, like the scene has changed quite a bit. You know, everybody has a webcomic now. It's very easy to put one on. My cat probably has a webcomic right now, and it's probably better than mine. You know? But so even with like the landscape changing so much, where like there are so many webcomics, and like now like just being a webcomicer isn't all that special anymore. Like even ConnectiCon still treats so many webcomics, like people from established veterans who've been in the scene for like a decade to people who are just starting in the past year. Everybody kind of gets that same treatment, that same level of like, no, you're doing stuff. You're creating the content. Welcome. And, you know, so ConnectiCon is kind of like home for a lot of us webcomicers. We have a very, very soft spot in our hearts for this show. And a lot of people I know travel a very long way to come here because it's just got such a nice, good vibe to it. You came from like the Maryland area?
DC.
The DC area, yes. It's not a short ride. So if there's anybody who has questions for the webcomicers, I know Jim Cummings is a bit of a hard act to follow.
Yeah. How do you follow?
As best we can, yeah. Like, we do the webcomics! Fantastic.
Yes, what's your favorite part of the convention?
Favorite part of the convention? Oh, my favorite part of any convention is meeting the people.
Yeah.
Meeting people is the best thing in the world because, you know, you get feedback on the internet. That's one. No, you do.
As it is.
As it is, yeah. But those are words on a screen. You know, I mean, I like texting people, but I like talking to people face to face a lot better. It's convenient for me to, you know, text my wife when she's at work, but I like it better when she comes home. Like a puppy. Like, oh, you're back. This is my dad. Oh, you're back. Oh, how was your day? Let me tell you about mine. There were people on the internet, and they were mean, but you're nice to me. Wow. Yeah. That's internet. That's very life. But conventions are so vital, I feel, because
Yeah, it really puts you in touch.
It puts you in touch with people. It gets you meeting new people, whether it's other creators, whether it's other fans, people who don't know you or just like happen to like be glancing by and go, oh, that looks kind of neat. Who are you? And ConnectiCon I like the most because it has, to me, it has like the coolest attendees. It's a wide variety of people. Everybody is super nice, and like I've never had a bad ConnectiCon because everybody here is just so welcoming and so open to new things, and
It's always been entertaining.
it's always been fantastic. Yes.
So what is something right now that you're pretty excited about working on?
Our new webcomic.
Oh, yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
Hey,
talk
yeah.
about that?
You want to take this one? I've been talking a lot.
Oh, well, all right. Okay, so, so the new comic we're working on, Star Power, is, I know, right?
I'm super excited.
Is our attempt to make superhero comics, you know, awesome again. Because, I mean, all you have to do is pick up any recent published superhero comic, and you're like, oh, the angst. It's so heavy.
The gritty realism.
Yeah, and
Being a superhero must be terrible.
And we're trying to harken back to, you know, a bit more of a golden age, both in the sci-fi and in the superhero kind of genres, where like space was awesome, superpowers were awesome, people did awesome things. They went to, you know, new planets and explored new places and discovered new things about themselves by, you know, going out. Very Star Trek-y kind of thing. And so it's a blast. It is actually the first time I really seriously, you know, teamed up with somebody else to work on a project with. Like, through the years doing all the writing, I'm doing the artwork, and we find that to be an excellent division of labor.
Yeah.
Actually, it works out really well.
Well, I mean, like, how are you, as somebody who, like, I actually just went into doing things about the golden age of comics and did a whole post on that. So how are you looking back on, you know, 1930s is when things really exploded, but not going gritty and darker, which is like the only way people seem to
I know.
understand.
Well,
it's so bizarre.
We didn't have to look that far back. We went just back to our childhoods when, like, you know, we would look at superhero comics and we'd be like, I want to do that. I want the cape. I want the thing on my chest with the lasers and aliens going, thank you for saving us, spaceman. You're welcome. Shoo! Off to the next planet in dire need of help.
So I mean, there's none of those things. Like everyone loves the concept of Flash Gordon, right? Like, you know, Flash. Oh. And you know, even though all the Flash movies are awful, everyone loves the concept of like the space hero who, you know, the two-fisted action adventure, where the good guys are good guys and the villains are villains, and none the twain shall meet, except at the end of a fist. You know, and yes, it makes for, I don't know, simpler stories, I suppose, but those stories, even if they are simple by the modern gritty standard of storytelling, they're very iconic stories. They speak to people. You know, they reach out to, you know, and you know, show that yes, we are capable of being awesome and doing the right thing for no other reason than it's the right thing to do. And I think that's especially, you know, as of late, that's something that a lot of people like. It's refreshing. And a lot of people like that kind of that notion, that concept.
Forward to it.
Cool. Hope you check it out.
Please do.
Yes.
You talked earlier about the evolution of the webcomic. Do you find that there's a lot of copying now going on? Like, did you just change one or two elements, or somebody changed one or two elements, but it's still basically your
No,
webcomic?
that's pretty much been, in my experience, it's kind of been, that's always been that way. Back in like what, 2000?
In almost any genre.
But in webcomics, what I've noticed, and like back in maybe 2004, 05, maybe 06, there was a lot of two guys on the couch playing video games, webcomics, and there were a lot of
hot chick friend.
And their hot chick friend who's like, who's like the den mom, like, oh boys, you're just so goofy. My controller's on fire and I don't know why. Something like that. And that's kind of petered off. And there are still video game comics, and some of them are very, very funny. But like the two guys on the couch cracking wise while they're playing Xbox, that
Unless you're Penny Arcade, it's hard to do that comic.
that genre is thankfully gone. But what I see now is a lot of autobiographical stuff.
Yeah.
Like life in the city with me and my friends and our crazy adventures. Which is, I think, a little more interesting, because I'm a little more interested in city life than what you do when you're playing Call of Duty. You know, I'm also a city boy, so I like the landscape. I like cityscapes. I like urban tales. And
In a
stuff
lot
like
of
that.
ways, webcomics have kind of found their niche and have started to replace newspaper comics. And so they have a lot of the same kind of commonalities now. They're kind of, the bulk of them are kind of slice of life, the way that a lot of newspaper strips are. Even when you know it's Garfield and it's about a talking cat, it's still effectively a slice of life comic, you know, in a funny way. And so like that's kind of where like webcomics have like gone. There's still people that experiment with weird things, you know. I mean, like we're experimenting with kind of a more traditional long form comic on the web, which is not the common format. But
that's the wonderful freedom of webcomics.
that's
You don't have
you
to
can do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want. You don't have to get that past an editor.
Yeah.
Like, well, that format won't do for our advertisers. Out.
You have
Next guy.
You have a web. Yeah, the beauty of webcomics is that if you have pictures and words and a website, that's all you need. You're done. You're there. Whether anyone likes it or not is an entirely different story.
Yes.
When you guys are
You and then you.
okay, when you're writing, when you guys are first coming up with a concept for one of the stories or whatever it might be, how far in do you go before you actually start making each individual episode? That makes sense. Do you guys have like character bibles or kind of like those type of things where you know everything about a character before you start writing the story?
Yes and no. We start with a basic outline that we like, and then go with a script from there. And then if we happen to like how a character finally looks and feels, because you know, a script is one thing, like this character is going to say this now next to this character. But then and this happened to me when I was doing Dominic Egan by myself, and it's happening now with Garth. Like I'll put like, okay, this is going to happen today, and I'm going to move on forever from this idea. But as soon as I see it finished on the page, like something about two characters together maybe will click, and I'm like, I kind of like the way that looks. I want more of these two in the same panel. How can I get that to work? Well, I'll flesh out this other character. And that's happened, I think, a couple times with other like throwaway characters of ours. Some henchmen that we didn't ever think we'd see again. Once we finally saw them on the page, like, Garth, you drew, I wrote that? That's funny, dude. We need to see more of these guys. Yes, all right, new decision. They're recurring characters. Fantastic. We don't like to stay too married to a script because a story is kind of a fluid thing, and you can't really stay married to any ideas because, you know, someone could just say, like, that's terrible, we gotta start over. And that happened recently. I wrote like half of a script. It's like, what do you think, Garth? And he was wise enough to go, it's terrible. Dude, you gotta start again. He's like, all right. Page one, you know.
And it was much better.
Yeah, thank you. So we try to go in enough with like we know what we're gonna go for, but we are open to new ideas once we see pages like finalized, and like keeping ourselves open to like.
The characters almost always surprise you because, you know, they wind up taking on a personality of their own, and so things that you don't even think about happening suddenly make perfect sense for that character to do, and opens up new venues. So it's a very fluid process.
Yeah, fun too.
It is. I think also it depends on the nature of the project. Some of my previous works have had the entire comic has been like a long-running story rather than a more episodic kind of nature. In that instance, I think further along in the story process and in the characters. Like, where do I want to end up with that? Because the end is important to this story because it's a self-contained deal. With Star Power, which is a bit more episodic in nature, we see nearer endpoints. I think I answered.
Yeah. And you, yes, our last question, I believe.
Yes, we have time for one more question.
Okay, first off, as somebody who's been complaining about some of the darker turns that superhero comics are making, I will be watching you very carefully.
Thank you very much.
And my question is a bit more on the technical geeky side. What materials do you use when you're putting a comic together? Do you draw it on paper? Do you use tablets?
Well,
The artist.
well, you used to draw comics.
Yeah, used to.
Well, my process has changed over the years fairly significantly. I used to do a lot of the pencil work and even at one point the inking as well on paper and scan it in and then do all the coloring digitally. And then I started doing the inking digitally because I found that I got better results that way. And then I eventually said nuts to this, and now I just do everything digitally. I open up a file in Photoshop and I go to town. From a technical standpoint, I've been using Wacom's tablet technology for years now, probably as long as I've been doing webcomics. Started out with one of their Intuos tablet models, and a couple years back upgraded to one of their Cintiqs, which is super sexy. Oh god, it's such a beautiful thing. But that's an entirely different conversation as to why it's awesome to be able to just like draw on the screen of your computer. That's entirely interacting with your computer is an entirely different conversation.
But, I mean, the wonder of webcomics is that there is no industry standard when it comes to making. I mean, Garth uses all digital. When I was drawing webcomics, I did paper and pen. And, you can have, clip art, copyright-free clip art, which is just free for anybody to use. You can have, like, a crayon on a cocktail napkin if you really want it. That there is no, like, you need to have this equipment to make a webcomic. You need a scanner. Well, not even there.
You need to be able to take your art and put it on the web.
That's really the only thing you need. Otherwise, you can make a webcomic out of wood chippings or Scrimshaw if you really want it to be different. So that's the beauty, right?
Very artsy,
From digital to handmade to totally abstract, and there's whatever you want in webcomics, and that's why we love it so much. And I think that's all the time we have. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.